Well, hello everyone. Welcome to season 5 of the Reddit League, and we are just underway. We are in the middle of week 1, and so we got a preview show, all the changes that have happened in between the seasons, and a look at all the competitors across all 5 divisions. My name is Zotomo, and I am joined, as always, for the last 4 seasons now. We've done this thing for 4 seasons, Calamity. How are you?
I'm doing good. Hi.
Yeah, and our guest today in the preview show is Mr. Blue. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, no problem. Fresh off a successful first season of the Map Battle League to talk to us about all the players and how they might do in this competition. To start us off, let's take a look at the rules for Reddit League. Here are the basic rules. Players compete in a 1-versus-1 format each week across different maps. They get points awarded to them for a tie, win, or a loss, or 0 for a loss. A match is a tie if they are within 100 points of each other in their score. There are bonus points for a perfect game and being in the top 50% score-wise in your own division for that week. Players who don't play will get a yellow card. If they continue not to play, they will be red carded and disqualified. Players at the top or bottom of each division are promoted and demoted respectively after a playoff. And in the actual Division 1 title challenge, final will be decided at a best of 3, as it has been for the last couple years. Calamity, you are now the organizer, and there are a few more kind of nuanced rule changes from the last couple seasons. So do you want to talk about those?
Yeah, sure. Let's start off with some of the more basic stuff that we've already gotten behind us in the preseason. This time, we still kept the same format, essentially, but we went from having 2 world maps to 1 continental map instead, and all of these seeds had been handpicked for the 5 maps of the preseason, and I think that went relatively well. We got a good sort of split between, the best players and the medium good players, and now that that's over, we're getting into the regular season, and for that, there haven't been that many changes. The most important are probably that the tiebreakers have been slightly changed, both for matches in and of itself, although that is mostly only relevant for either, being just between the 50% mark in a table or for any given week, where it decides if you're 5th and get a bonus point or 6th and don't get a bonus point, at least for the 10-player divisions, which is now time instead of distance. And that also, of course, relevant for later on in the playoffs. And for the table as well, it used to be perfect games, which were the tiebreaker, but I thought that a perfect game already gives you a bonus point, so it doesn't make too much sense for me to also be the tiebreaker. So that tiebreaker is now the total score, which is, you can do because everyone's playing the same seeds, so whoever gets the most amount of points, that's now the tiebreaker. If they're on the same amount of total points, then it still goes back to the perfect game. Then we go to another slight rule change, which is basically, I've just written it down. It's kind of always been like that anyway, in a sense, but that promotion and relegation spots depend on how many players are in the league and which league we're talking about. For example, like relegation spots in Division 5 work a bit differently than the ones in Division 2. I just formally put that into the rules now. And for this season, the most significant change there is that Division 1 will only have 2 relegation spots, 1 guaranteed and 1 played out in the playoff, while Division 2 and everything further down than that stays the same. So technically, if all 10 players, if all 8 players who actually manage to stay in the division, as well as 2 newcomers or so, let me start that again. If everyone who stays in Division 1 this season continues to play next season, then we would have 11 players instead of 10, so I'd probably add a newcomer to it. But so far, I don't think we've ever had a case where everyone in the division continued to play. So I decided that because we don't necessarily always want to put in newcomers into Division 1, if one person decides to stop playing, then we don't have to, and we just stay with 10 players. Of course, if 2 or 3 people drop out, then we have to fill it up again anyway, but that should reduce the necessity to always put in newcomers into Division 1. And there's 2 more changes. The playoff finals, so for the promotion and relegation, all games in Division 1, 2, and 3, but also for Division 4 and 5, that still has the same format of having a semi-final first and then a final. For those who will only be the final, those games will now be best of 3s, because it just feels a bit more fair after a whole season of doing your best and maybe being separated by only a few points, or maybe even just by total score, to then have promotion and relegation, which is a huge thing decided by only one map, feels a bit random in a way. So we've decided to make them a free map affair, and hopefully people will like that, and it'll make it a bit fairer in that regard. And the last thing is just a purely administrative thing, which is that players now have at most 2 free extensions in a season. So there you can't every week. I don't think it was really happening that much anyway, but some players had concerns about, people wanting an extension every week and getting more time to practice for the difficult countries, I guess. And it does make sense, because if you look at sports generally in the regular sports, you don't really have things like extensions in there. There's a set time, and if you can't play, then you lose, basically, unless both teams agree on a what's the word for that,
just postponing the match or something.
Yeah. Exactly, postponement. We've limited it to 2 free extensions. You can still, after those 2, technically get another extension, but you wouldn't get any points for that week. So you might as well click through the seed at least and try to get some points. But you don't, for example, if you already had 2 free extensions and basically are out of them, and then you decided to go on holiday on, Thursday, and you meant to play on Wednesday, but you couldn't for some reason because your internet broke down or something, and then you had to go away on holiday. You don't automatically get a yellow card if you inform me in time, if you just have no way of playing. But of course, you're not getting any points for such an extension.
I think that you did actually forget to mention a small thing as well, which is that
Possible.
in one of the playoffs situations, you also have a ban situation.
Yeah,
where,
true.
You have a pool of 7 maps, and then each player will basically ban 2 maps that they don't want to play. I think that is also an important thing to mention.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I did it. And otherwise, then the other rule changes that you have mentioned, I would say that indeed they do make sense. And like when it comes to tiebreakers, I think that is something that is difficult to see what is the best way, because we had the same thing in my battle league. Then you make a choice, as in okay, what do you think is the best way to do it? And then throughout the season, you get all different kind of feedback, and some people agree, others disagree. There's always going to be a puzzle, and we just have to see what is the best way for that, and we need to keep on looking at that throughout seasons and throughout other competition and so on. It really depends on how things go, basically.
Yeah, and I think you can never please everyone with stuff like tiebreakers, because there's just people that will fundamentally disagree on what should be the tiebreaker. Some people will always say, well, distance is more important, and some people will always say time is more important. And you kind of just have to find a balance. My personal favorite would probably be a combination of both. But as you know, I've made a survey at the end of last season. It turns out that I think the vast majority prefer time. So we'll go with that for this season, and we'll see how it goes. And if we still feel that there's a need to change that, we might combine the 2. Because personally, I do think that someone who beat a map in, or when I say beat, I mean 25k the map in 4 minutes, but was for world maps say 800 meters away, maybe 4 minutes is a bad example, but whatever, shouldn't necessarily win over someone who got 2 meters away in 5 minutes. But yeah, that's really up to personal opinion. So yeah.
Very nice. We do have a whole new map pool for this season as well. The draw pools for the maps are the same as last season, but the order has slightly been shifted around. And now we'll take a look at these maps. We start off in Europe, in Poland. In this one, Asia next, Jordan, Volvo dealerships for world map will be pretty interesting. Australia, Idaho for our US state. A state that I have lived in. So I doubt I'll have any home field advantage, but yeah, maybe. Russia is our second Asian country, a hard world for a world map. Europe is the continent, which is definitely interesting. Canada, all of Canada this time for the Americas map. Ukraine, another Cyrillic alphabet country as Europe number 2. Intersections, which might be an easy pinpointable kind of map for worldwide. And we finish off possibly with a AI generated world in the playoff matches if it need be. But the change to how the maps are picked and banned, it'll be a little bit different from that, but that's kind of our placeholder for that one. Yeah, so Mr. Blue, I'll get your thoughts on these countries first.
All right. Well, I'm actually looking forward to this season. I think it's an interesting map pool. First of all, very diverse as well, and still also some similarities with Russia and Ukraine in there. Bit controversy maybe with what's going on right there, but I mean, like they both
I picked those before it started.
Yeah, I know. No, but it's like interesting because both of them of Cyrillic, of course. So if you do read and do speak Cyrillic, then that can be a big advantage. As I live in Bulgaria, that would personally for me be one of the things that I need to look for. But then on the other hand, I do believe also that maybe 90% of the people in Division 1 can actually read Cyrillic. So I'm not really sure if that is really going to be a bonus for me. Poland is an interesting country to start with as well. I created a map called Balanced Poland with over 5K locations, and that took me quite a while to do. Yeah, Poland has a lot of cities that are relatively big, and they're going to be quite hard to find in some situations. So that is quite an interesting one already to start with. Jordan, not that much coverage, but like it's still quite a country that is quite like similar to Chile, but obviously not that big. But like it's kind of like north-southish kind of country with a lot of highways, but not many urban coverage. So that's going to be interesting. Volvo dealerships. I don't think I've ever seen this map before, so I don't really know much to tell about it, but I guess it's just another world map. Maybe some Swedish locations in there. I don't know. I cannot really tell. Australia is always difficult for me. Can be easily if you can figure out where you are in a city, for instance. But if you're on a rural road somewhere in the middle of nowhere, then good luck with that. I guess Idaho might be something similar. I mean, I really haven't really much experience in playing in Idaho yet, so I'm skipping that one for now. So Russia and Ukraine we already mentioned. Hard world is actually a hard one. Definitely, I've played some seeds on that map, and that is definitely a world map which has a lot of difficult locations. So that's going to be quite a challenge. Europe as a continent, I am very happy with that one because I think that for me personally is one of my stronger part. So yeah, I can definitely look forward to something there. But I think I'm playing box out there, so that's going to be a challenge on its own. Canada, yeah, it's a nice country to play in. Very diverse, as you probably know. So sort of easy to figure out what side of the country you're in, but the pinpointing is always a bit of a challenge there. Ukraine, I think I don't even have to play because it's we are
Yeah.
we're 10 people. So yeah, that one I can skip myself, and the same goes then for intersection guesser, which you mentioned might be an easy one to pinpoint. Technically, you could say so, but it's going to be. I mean, like this map is quite known, and yeah, there's a lot of rural locations with intersections as well, and it's definitely not going to be easy at all.
Yeah, Calamity, your thoughts on this draw?
Yeah, there's a lot of countries that I don't necessarily like playing in, but that's just the luck of the draw. And there are definitely some I'm looking forward to as well. Poland in week 1, as Mr. Blue already said, quite a few big cities, and I generally like the most problems I've got in Poland are with big cities, and usually you can have very rural locations where you do just drive across empty fields for 3 minutes without finding a single sign. Of course, those are worse, but in the semi-populated regions, I do prefer like being somewhere out there instead of in the middle of, I don't know, Warsaw or some of those locations. And I do think Poland might be one of the easiest maps generally this season, because it has quite a few different things that you can rely on to get yourself to the right location. It's got area codes into with phone numbers. It's got postcodes, which are relatively well sorted. It's got road numbers, which are sort of well sorted in some places. So there's quite a lot of things which you can use. And Poland is actually, I've thought about that while playing through some of the practice seats, that Poland seems like one of the very rare countries in Europe that actually still uses like the phone area codes, because like pretty much anywhere in Western Central Europe, you don't use phone area codes. You've got a mobile phone, and that's going to be on every ad, on everything. And Poland still very much so uses the phone area codes on pretty much most signs that they've got. So that's very interesting. Then for Jordan, as Mr. Blue already said, very much a north-south country in the street view coverage. It's more so like not really a square, but it is pretty wide as well as a country, but there's just no street view coverage in the east at all. And I think Jordan could be a very easy map to figure out where you are generally. It's got a decent sort of amount of signs that at least tell you which road you're on, and maybe if you get lucky, how far away you are from Aqaba or Amman. But then it gets tough, because especially the highways between those two cities oftentimes don't really have much information about where exactly you are. So you're really going to have to find a way to figure out your exact placement, and maybe, I'd say get familiar with the landscape, but I also think like a lot of Jordan just kind of looks similar, so it might be problematic. And yeah, the cities itself are also not too easy to pinpoint, but I feel like it'll more so come down to some highway locations out there somewhere in the middle of the country when it comes to losing a couple of points here or there in deciding games. Then all Volvo dealerships in the world is, yeah, pretty standard world map. I actually looked it up. I think Volvo dealerships are in about 60 countries or so in the world.
The map says 63 countries and
yeah,
over 1,500 locations.
Yeah, so still should be pretty diverse, although you probably will see a bias towards the US and the Nordic countries, maybe Japan as well, somewhat, if you're looking at more the Asian side. But we should still be diverse enough to have an interesting map there. Then we go to Australia, which is one of my least favorite countries to play. And but on the other hand, Reddit League always at least gives me an excuse to finally practice these countries that I don't like. And that's the one thing. That's good news for me with that pick there. Very, very big country. Not a lot of coverage on the western side of it and through the center of it. Lots of coverage on the east. And yeah, I'll just try to figure out how to do well in that country. And I'll say more about it when we get to it in the league and when I've actually taken a look at it. And then Idaho is an interesting one as well. There wasn't really a good map for it. Well, when I say good map, a map that actually had enough locations for me So I made a polygon map of it, which had like, or has like 30,000 locations. And just to practice, or not practice, but just to play it and test it, played like through 2 seeds. And I think I got like 15k or more every time playing it no moving without any prior practice, because it's just so diverse in the sense that even if you don't know Idaho at all, and if you just take one look at the map of it
Mm.
and see, there's green areas, there's mountains, there's a bit more dry areas, you can already pretty much tell almost where you are to a shockingly accurate deviation. So that could be a very pinpoint heavy map as well, where everyone will get the right area, but it'll come down to, can you actually pinpoint everything correctly? Then Russia. I think I'm playing against Orpheus in Russia. Also not going to be very easy. I feel like Russia to me is sort of, some seeds I like, some seeds I hate. It'll depend a lot on the specific seed we get. It can be pretty difficult in some cities to actually be able to figure out the city name within 3 minutes. So that might be rough here or there, because that can definitely cost you the game straight away if you can't figure out the right city. I don't know yet if I'm going to have a look at the area codes, because there's a lot of them. But I might have at least a look if there's some consistency to it, in, at least being able to tell, like, are you near Moscow, or maybe near, I don't know, Irkutsk, near Omsk, somewhere around that, so that I can at least get a decent feeling. Because in a rural area, it's actually quite easy to tell Russia off of landscape, but I'm struggling in like an urban city. It becomes a lot more difficult for me. And yeah, a hard world, which we'll see, but I feel like I'd quite enjoy that if if we don't get Indonesia in it. Um, but we'll see. Could be very interesting. Probably, probably the hardest map we've got, just on, pure, how difficult is it going to be to pinpoint your locations. I'm definitely expecting lower scores to be had in other maps, just because, it's a world map and you'll always have somewhat high scores, because you should probably at least be able to tell the country in most scenarios. But it's definitely going to be an interesting one too. And uh, then we're moving over to Europe. Another map that I am looking forward to. And yeah, I feel like Europe is always a fun one to play. Can also have its very difficult countries. There's a lot of areas that probably sound easier to pinpoint than they are. A lot of like rural Portugal, rural France, some of the Eastern European or Balkan countries can also make this a very difficult seed if you get unlucky with it. And then Canada, which I look forward to a lot, because I liked Saskatchewan last season. And there is there are a few other provinces and territories which I may not like as much, but we'll see about it. Looking forward to playing that. And then we've got Ukraine, which I don't like, so I'm glad it's not in the 9 maps that I have to play. Because there's a lot of rural areas in Ukraine where it can be very difficult to find anything at all within 3 minutes. And then Intersection Geoguessr, a pretty basic world map. And although I have actually, for in Map Battle League currently in the playoffs, I'm playing a map from Tychonicus of South Dakota, which is also called Intersection Geoguessr. And in one of my practice seeds, I had a location that wasn't at an intersection. So we'll hope that doesn't happen in this map. But
Yeah, and I
pretty
can
pretty standard map.
say about that indeed that from what I know is that the auto-generating system does recognize intersections, but sometimes indeed there is like something slightly off, and then it does select a location where there's no intersection at all, even though there is not even anything close by it, which is kind of weird indeed. But that's what I in Map Battle League, like whenever we had that kind of situation, we did indeed fix the seed so that it was always at an intersection. So yeah, that would be something to look for, I guess, as well in the organization bit, to make sure that okay, yeah, it's an intersection guesser.
Yeah.
Not every location might be at an intersection, but maybe for the competition, it should be better to actually have them like that.
Yes. Sure.
Yeah, for the maps here, it says that they use OpenStreetMap to judge intersections, which means there are intersections that Google Maps leaves out, or that they're slightly in a different location. So the map maker claims there are intersections. Whether or not they show up on Google Maps is another matter. And it's interesting to note that while we have one map named Intersection Guesser, 4 of the maps are maps designed where all locations should be at intersections of some size. So not necessarily named streets, but of some size. So that means they are definitely pinpointable. Whether or not you can actually do that is another matter, but it will mean that 5Ks are on the table for those maps much more easily, perhaps, than some of the others for those. Very nice. Well, heading on then to our divisions, we will start with Division 1 and the players in it. And yeah, our returning champion Boxa did not leave, thank goodness. So we have a chance at a repeat champion. A couple newcomers in this one. Calamity, you among them. M the Baseman, and I lost my screen. Where did it go? Fluky, there we go. The other promoted player. Nimrif is the new addition from the preseason, and you can see that all preseason qualifiers have a little asterisk next to their name in all the divisions to help us out. What I don't have on here is who's dropped out, Calamity.
Yes, in Division 1, that will be only Blinky, who didn't return.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just the relegated players from Division 1 didn't stay. So, yeah, so obviously, Mr. Blue and Calamity, this is the division you're in. Any early predictions about how this division is going to go?
From me, okay.
Yeah.
The first match in the season I should win because it's going to be one of my easiest ones against Calamity. No, just joking. Yeah, this is going to be, yeah, maybe as hard or maybe even harder than the last season, to be honest. And it was already extremely hard back then. Just looking at the players, it's just ridiculous how good these are, and yeah, that I have to play them for the second row actually for the third time in Division 1 now. But I mean, like the first season, there were still a few situations where you thought like, okay, that one I can maybe win, and this one. But like looking at the situation right now, it's like everybody is like extremely good. Like Calamity, Plucky coming in, Nimrif as well is like, okay, yeah, that's going to be extremely difficult to play again as well. And yeah, and the basement is also coming up, by the way. So yeah, it's a very interesting one. It's a lot of people that I like as well, which is interesting at the same time. Do have connections with almost everybody here. So yeah, it's just going to be a very interesting competition against extremely good players who are also sort of friends. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to this season.
Yeah, Calamity.
Yeah, a lot of a lot of very interesting matches as well for me, just personally, because a lot of matches against people I've played against before, or as Mr. Blue said, I know from other competitions or through just generally playing Geoguessr. And a very interesting challenge as well. I kind of got through Division 2 last time around relatively, let's call it problemless, with an advantage of 5 points, even though it definitely wasn't as easy as the points may make it seem. And there's a lot of players in here where, like, a few seasons ago, I would have said, well, I've got no chance. But now I'm like, I could, if I get good performances out of myself, which is always the most difficult part for me, I could definitely fight to stay in the division at least. And I'll just take every map one at a time, and I'll see how it ends up. And yeah, definitely some players that I'll really have a hard time against, but I feel like most of the time I shouldn't even like say, hey, this is a person I can beat, but more so, hey, maybe on this map I can actually get a 25k or at least 24.9k, so it doesn't matter too much what my opponent does. And just if my opponent makes a mistake and loses the game, then that's just for the better. I think looking at the playoffs potentially, I think we're still looking at a pretty similar situation where obviously Box is going to be a favorite again after winning last season. Raidman's been in the playoffs for like, I think even the past
Yeah,
three
four
seasons.
seasons. Well, 3 seasons in a row. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's definitely a good candidate to end up there again. Orpheus is a really strong player. Mr. Blue, of course, also. Nimrith, as a newcomer, has been very strong in preseason, and I fully expect him to be up there fighting alongside them as well. Obviously, always depending a bit on how much is he actually going to practice. That's always a question with the newcomers, but he got like 123.6k in the preseason season of 5, so overall 5 seeds he lost like 1.4k points. So that should already tell you he's one to be reckoned with. And even some of the players that you may not fully expect to be fighting for the playoffs could get a chance if everything pays off for them. If they maybe like the countries more this season. Verdok's always dangerous. Bulgur maybe likes these countries a bit more than last season. Uh, Never underestimate any of the players in Division 1 for sure, because they're here for a reason.
Very nice. Yeah, looking forward to Division 1. It's going to be a very tight competition, and we'll definitely have a well-deserved winner at the end of Season 5. For Division 2, it's a bit of an American and Nordic division, a bit of an anomaly in the sense there's only one Frenchman in this one, Mr. Blue.
Yeah, indeed. And yeah, we can see that that is Latams, who is actually a player who played in the Map Battle League in Division 5, still has a chance of promoting there. And we will see that throughout like this whole competition, that we have like a lot of people that are in both competitions, also new ones, and that the level of the players seem to be different. Well, I mean, like they are in lower divisions in my battle league, and then in higher divisions here, or the other way around. So that shows that the level of the competition, competitive players within Geoguessr are very strong in general, and you will see that throughout the season as well. That anyone can basically beat anyone. It just depends on the map, on your form of the day. Yeah, on going the right direction, you know, that sort of things, remembering where a city is on the map as well. I remember a situation last year where I could simply, and I knew where the city was, I just didn't see it, and it took me like 2 minutes, and then I still didn't found it, and yeah, then I lost my match, and that's how it goes sometimes. So yeah, Latams is definitely someone to take to recognize and to take care of. No, I'm saying it really wrong, but you know what I mean.
To watch out for. There
Yeah,
we go.
to watch out for indeed. Yeah, and just looking at like the other newcomers, we can see Snorlax, we can see Moist Flubber and Renata, which, I mean, Snorlax is known in the community, not from international competitions like this, but he's doing quite well in other sorts of game modes, so to say. Moist Flubber has been doing really well in for instance, Formula G, and Renata is in your division, Calamity, in Map Battle League, and she's been doing quite good there as well. Some less good performances as well from time to time. So yeah, it comes back to consistency, and that is going to be a key factor in most of the competitions.
Yeah, Calamity. Ice Tower is the one relegated from Division 1. LCN, Berry Fishy Bear, and Polybus or Ordbucka are the ones coming up from Division 3. How do you think they're going to fare in their new division?
I think they've got a decent chance to do very well here. Looking at this, I don't think you've got a lot of clear favorites. Definitely keep an eye out for Moist Flubber for sure. Snorlax as well from the preseason. They could be very strong contenders. Renata also has done some pretty good performances in the preseason and had some good showings, as Mr. Blue said, in Map Battle League. Of the her match against me was not one to be remembered,
Mm.
where we played Czechia and combined the two of us didn't get above 21k, I think.
Yeah, that was a very difficult seed, to be honest. So
it was a horrible seed, yeah. Not horrible in the way that it was a bad seed, but horrible to play for sure. And yeah, I think on the other map I beat her like 19k to 14k in Bolivia or something like that. But yeah, definitely she could have a good shot at this as well. Maybe more so like around mid-table. But yeah, I also definitely think the promoted players, LCN, Barry, or Boca as well, although I might think he's probably the one who'll struggle the most out of the promoted players just because he barely got in there. He was fourth in his division, Division 3 last season, then won the playoffs. But on his day, definitely a candidate or a player that can beat everyone as well. But I think personally, the ones you should really look out for if they can start strong this season are Max and Shumi, because they had a really good second half of the season last time around, and they just couldn't get off the start line at the beginning, and then had to come from far behind. And both of them really made it close at the end, and were only like 1 or 2 points away from the playoffs after being like 5, 6, 7 points behind after like 4 or 5 weeks.
I think Max had like 3 perfect games out of 4 or something like that.
Yeah,
yeah,
crazy stuff from him at some point there. Ice is definitely going to have. Well, for him, I feel like it'll depend a lot on how motivated he is. He was having motivational problems as well towards the end of last season, or throughout most of Division 1 last season. So purely based on skill, he can definitely fight for a promotional spot as well. But it just depends on how much is he going to be willing to practice.
Nice. Well, moving on to Division 3, plenty of Frenchmen again in this one. And we have our first unique new entrant. Blockchain Prenup was disqualified in a red card in Season 3, had to sit out a season, but he is back. That's the double asterisk next to his name. The promoted players into Division 3, Mr. Blue, Firebond, and Steal This Nick, with Pashtek Hache coming down from Division 2. So yeah, a very French division, very European division as you look at these flags in this one.
yeah, indeed, and also here a lot of players that are that I would consider that they are really really good actually. Like you said, like Faraban is now promoted for the second time, and I would say that he still looks like he could be one of the people that actually can promote further. We got people like Paulinho Armand in there, close WTF. I mean, like there's a lot of people that here that can still yeah go on and move further up in the divisions. But then even all the other ones as well, like like Hugo has been in there for like a couple of years, always doing really well, and then still fighting for relegation, and that goes for all the other players as well. Like everybody can really perform well here. The ones that I do not know would basically maybe be Bootbat, but yeah, he's coming from the French community, which is just in general really good as well. So yeah, good luck playing in this division as well, and try to stay in it. To be honest, so people like Seppo, who has been also like in like with Hugo, he's been in relegation battles all over the time. He's also in relegation battle right now well, actually he did relegate for Mad Battle League. But I've looked at his performances, and like also his performances can be extremely good from time to time. So yeah, just it really depends on how that goes, and we come back to the consistency of the players, because everybody is able to play a good game. There's no doubt about that, and yeah, you just need to be consistent enough throughout the whole season in order to get a chance, and that's what it comes down to.
Definitely, yeah, Calamity.
Yeah, and I unfortunately have to bring you the first bad news of the season, which is that Faraban unfortunately has decided against continuing to compete, and he unfortunately has come with this to me too late to actually like do anything about it. So he will unfortunately have to be red carded. If he'd come to me with that 1 week early, I could have just moved up the preseason places a bit. But now we're already here and we can't do anything about it. So Division 3 will basically start out with only 11 people, which is a bit unfortunate. But at least with the way that, bye weeks essentially work now, you kind of can still play your games and treat it like any other game. And as you said, while we were talking about the maps, there's like 4 maps that are kind of intersection based, and a few more maps that where you can definitely get a 25k and secure yourself a bonus point if you do really well. So at least in that regard, it's not too bad. But of course, unfortunate for him. Also unfortunate for the other newcomers from preseason that would have maybe gone up a division. But yeah, nothing you can do about it. And yeah, for everyone else in this division, I think it's a very close division skill wise, and I'm having a really hard time deciding on who would be the favorites out of this one. Again, as always, you kind of have to mention Freckles, who, if the maps are to his liking, and if maybe practices some of them a bit at least, then he's definitely a candidate to fight for promotion for sure. Closed was pretty close to it last time around. Also got to take a look at Steelers Nick, who is newly promoted into it, who's in the season he has played in Division 4. He's always been very consistent and, always fighting for the promotion, and he's finally pulled it off. So it'll be interesting to see how well he does in a higher division. Yeah, Mr. Blue mentioned it as well. Some of the people who've been fighting for relegation consistently, as with Seppo and Hugo. We'll see if they can finally take another step forward and maybe, have a bit of a better time this season. Because, yeah, you said they were fighting for against relegation. That's definitely true. But even looking at their points from last season, both of them weren't that far away actually from the upper half of the table. Hugo had 17 and Seppo had 16 points, and closed in 5th place had 22. So just 1 or 2 matches more going in their favor, and it could look completely different. And yeah, blockchain coming back, the first after in the 5th season of Reddit League, for the first time we actually have a player coming back, which is nice to see. Yeah, back then got red carded in unfortunate circumstances, but nothing you could do about that. And we'll see. He was definitely a good player. Was a Division 2 player for pretty much his entire stint throughout the first 2.5 seasons that he played. And although, was fighting against relegation mostly towards the end. And he could definitely be a strong candidate for promotion as well, but you don't know what happened in the last year or so. Maybe he's played and improved a lot. Maybe he's done not much and he's stayed at the same level or even gotten worse. Yeah, I think even Paulinho, WTF, and Pastek, also the newcomers, Buba and Armand, very, very strong players all around. And this could maybe even be the closest division all around, looking at these names.
Very nice. Well, moving on to Division 4 and 5, we are split into 2 groups. 4A is packed with 10 people. A couple newcomers worth mentioning in here. Flipster, Dromi, and Mike Piet. Serpkirist drops down. Moves up from Division 5. Sorry. To that, a couple names that were in 4B last season have moved over here. But again, I think it's a pretty close one again, Mr. Blue.
Absolutely. I spoke to Pastetli a few days ago, and he mentioned that he's looking forward to this competition and that he believes that 4A might be easier than 4B. And I am not sure about that because for B definitely is also strong, and we will see that in a bit. But looking at this competition here, yeah, these are extremely good players as well, to be honest. We have, for instance, Lunacy Echo, we have Soviet Spy, Hexalt, who have all been proven to be really good players. We got Wakelog, Sepkiest, and then of course Prestetli himself. But Solar Sensei, for instance, is someone who has reached the playoffs in my battle league in Division 1. So that is something that definitely needs to be mentioned here, and that is someone who can actually maybe considered to be one of the favorites. We got Flipster coming in, who actually is in Division 5 in my Battle League, but he actually took over a position from a player who dropped out, which is something that we did in that competition. And he came in and he shined basically, and also reached the playoffs for that division. So yeah, I consider him to be a good player as well. The only ones that I don't really know that much of are Mick and Dromi. But even them, yeah, they are playing within the French community, and I think that they're doing quite well in there as well. So yeah, anything can happen in this division for sure.
Yeah, Calamity.
Yeah, I think this is definitely, even if Pustetli says it might be slightly easier than Division 4B, it's definitely going to be a very tough season for him because there are some very strong players in here, and he'll definitely have to improve on how he's been doing last season, for example, where he had to go through the playoffs to stay in Division 4. Out of those players, actually, we're looking at my personal favorites to fight for promotion. Definitely going to have to say Hexalt, Lunacy, probably Sep, and Flipster as well. Those would be my 4 candidates. As Mr. Blue said, Solar Sensei did very well in Map Battle League, but I think just based on how that works, it doesn't necessarily have to translate well into performances here because you can just, choose maps that you like, and, you still have to play your opponent's map, but, I feel like you're more favored in that competition if you're very good at areas in the world where other players might not be good at, which the US typically is such an area. And he's definitely, though, if he can replicate those performances, sure, he can fight for a good place as well. I think the likes of Wakelok and maybe Pushdetli as well, maybe Soviets, if he can't fix his consistency issues from last season, might be in for a rough season. And yeah, Dromi and Mikpete will be interesting how well they'll do. They both did decently in preseason. But yeah, again, as I said in Division 1 when I talked about Nimrif, you never know how much they're actually going to practice, how much work they're going to put in it. If they do practice quite a bit, then I definitely think that they can fight for a good place as well. But typically, from what we've seen, like the French players usually didn't practice too much the first time they arrived in this competition. That's kind of been a trend where they've always thought like, yeah, I'll be fine, and then they end up suddenly in a relegation battle, and they're like, oh, right, Pastek. So we'll see, but yeah, they're definitely good players as well, and it'll be. I think Division 4 in general is one of my favorite divisions this season to look at and see how it plays out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, moving over to 4B, you'll see my name finally. I think this is my 3rd season in a row, not only in Division 4, but in Division 4B. So I don't get to move around a whole lot. A couple really interesting newcomers in Carp and Trebleha coming into this one, with also Labangreb and Yemeni coming up from the promotion spots. So a bit of a German and American division here, Mr. Blue.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be much easier for you than last season.
Nope.
Like the promoted players are going to be tough to beat, and yeah, also the newcomers in here. I mean, like I don't know Trebleha that much, but Carp for sure. He was my teammate in Formula G, and he did grab a few podium places there. So definitely shows that he can play as well. Then we got the likes of Jake Lyons, Pork Steaks, Nakiro, Headache Me. Yeah, it's just another strong competition, and my favorites here, I guess, yeah, maybe Headache Me would be a good one to go for. Maybe Jake, but Jake also is benefiting from certain maps in the map battle league, but he's been doing really well there as well. And I think that he can definitely fight for promotion here as well.
Very nice. Yeah, Calamity.
Yeah, not a very interesting division. It's actually interesting if you look at Division 4 in general. There's been 5 Americans, 5 Germans, and 5 French people out of those 20 people, but somehow, by coincidence, they all ended up relatively evenly split into the two divisions, so we don't have a repeat of last season's. I don't remember. I think it was Division 4A that had like pretty much only French and Americans or something, with like 1 or 2 added players onto that. And yeah, another pretty strong division. If I had to pick my favorites, it would probably be Jake for sure, Diesel, Harp even, maybe Heyemine and Laban Greb can get some performances out of themselves as well that could bring them up there. I think you and Pork Steaks are probably going to be looking at around the mid-table finish. Nakuro as well. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I don't really know with Headache Me, and I just don't know Tribly much at all. So uh, I don't know. But for me, I think those two might be having a rough season coming towards them. Headache Me only picking up 9 points last season and having to go through the playoff to stay in Division 4. And yeah, Tripliha did decent in the preseason, but yeah, who knows how he'll do over the course of a whole season.
Moving on to Division 5, this is where we see the biggest change, given that only, I think, 3 or 4 people stick around from last season. So we have 6 newcomers for each of these divisions. Probably the interesting thing here for 5A, Mr. Blue, Soundbite was in Season 3, didn't replay in Season 4, but has qualified in Season 5. So we have a returning person who was relegated out of Reddit League for this one, and a pretty good diverse number. Some of the interesting returners, Vincenzo and Bombadil, have put up some decent scores, but just haven't quite been able to get out of the division.
Indeed, yeah, and they are definitely looking in here now to do that this time. The question is if they are going to be able to, because yeah, some of the newcomers in here are actually also quite known in the community and can definitely do something here. The return of the Soundbite is indeed also interesting. He did also play in my Battle League, and he did actually have some really decent, good performances in there as well. Xander is a player who is also capable of doing a lot of good stuff from time to time. Clemens, who is interesting here because he was relegated last season, wasn't he? And he then qualified back into it right now. And I remember Calamity at some point telling him that he needed to up his game, and I think he clearly did that. To be honest, he did really well in my Battle League. He did also really well in Formula G, from time to time at least there. And yeah, I think that he is also a player to really watch out this season. Then we got Pingvin coming in. I do not know the other Polish player, Sachelin. I do not know him. I do not know Jamabi as well. Artificial I've seen before, but I don't really know much about how he plays. So those 3 players I cannot really judge, but all the other ones, they can definitely look for a promotion place. I would say all of them, yeah.
Yeah, Calamity.
Yeah, another really interesting division for sure. Artificial was actually looking to be around like a Division 3 spot before the last week of preseason, where unfortunately his hopes fell through in Bolivia and he got dropped down to Division 5. But because of that, he's definitely an interesting player to look out for as well, and probably one of the favorites for promotion. If the maps this season are apparently more like the other 4 maps we played and less like Bolivia. But yeah, definitely a good candidate. Xander as well, of course, a strong candidate here too. Jamabi or Yamabi, I don't know how he'd like to be pronounced, is actually doing really well in the competitive mode that Geoguessr has brought out not too long ago, where I think he's like top 20, top 30 or so in the world. So he's doing really well in that, and hasn't done too well in preseason, so it might be more so strong player in those modes. But you know, maybe he can improve in the normal Geoguessr as well and fight for a good place here. Clemens, of course, can't underestimate him. He's as Mr. Blue said, he's done pretty well in Map Battle League and in Formula G. So he's also a candidate who, if he can get it together on a day, then he can definitely be dangerous as well. Yeah, 59 soundbite, as we said, got relegated out of Division 5 in Season 3, then couldn't manage to qualify in Season 4, and now he's finally back. And he'll surely be hoping to stay in Division 5 this time and not get relegated again. That would be unfortunate. And yeah, Ollie again is also a pretty good player who's done well last season and just lost in the playoffs, as did Xander, for the promotion. So he can definitely fight for those again as well. So quite a lot of strong players in this division again, for
Yeah,
sure.
I was wondering, like Xander was already there last year. Why is there an asterisk next to his name?
Yeah, it's just, you know.
Because I went too fast.
It just
Simple
confused me.
answer for things like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it just confused me a bit when I was talking. I was like, okay.
I missed. Yeah, he was actually second in Division 5. Didn't manage to make the promotion. So Division 5B has also, of course, quite a few newcomers in this one. Some of our returning players. Neusel is the only player relegated from Division 4 who stuck around. Yeah, and Danny Blondes and Paranoid Android are kind of perennial Division 5 returnees for this, Mr. Blue.
Yeah, Paranoid Android had a different name in your competition last year. It was Sky Blue, wasn't it? But yeah, we called them Paranoid Android in my battle league, and you took it over. That's nice. Newcomers, Sheldon played in my battle league Division 1. Even reached the playoffs there as well. So it's interesting to see him in Division 5 here. But indeed, like as Calamity said, like my battle league is a different kind of competition, but still he's definitely someone to reckon with. I do not know Dikumir. I do know Big Cat and Jack, for instance. Naranjan, I don't know. And Arnono I've seen also in the French community. So again, here a few players that that are new that I cannot really judge, but also a couple of players that I do know and that really did well. Like Biquet did win his division in my battle league. Jack S got promoted as well. And then we got like the old group of people that were in here, like Noisel and Danny Blondes and Paranoid, who are all three players that definitely can perform from time to time, and Geoguessr as well, by the way. That they definitely have the capability to play good seed. They just need to figure out if they can do it slightly better than they have done in the previous years. But yeah, that's the battle that they have to fight here.
Yeah, Calamity. Yeah, Sheldon and Jackie S have been playing other competitions and do quite well. So they're maybe looking to be sort of favorites for a quick promotion out of Division 5.
Yeah, Sheldon was actually the highest finisher in preseason who ended up in Division 5. So he's definitely an interesting one to look out for. Jack actually did much worse than I expected from him. He only finished 21st. And just about, I mean, points-wise, he was like 11,000 points ahead of the 25th, which was the first person to not make it in. But still like 15,000 points behind Sheldon. So yeah, I don't know, maybe he's not just not too accustomed to this type of format or not too fond of it. But yeah, we'll see over the course of a whole season. But just from preseason, I expected more from him. Other than that, we've got 3 French players again. Also, all of them interesting to look at. Might be fighting for promotion as well. But I think this is another pretty close division potentially. Danny Blondes, of course, another candidate who's been now fighting for promotion twice in Division 5 and always just missed out. And yeah, we'll see how Neusel will be doing after. I think he fought against relegation in Season 3 and then finally got relegated in Season 4. Only picked up 3 points over the course of last season, so definitely not a good season for him back then. And he'll have to improve if he wants to at least stay in Division 5 because he's got some decent competition. And yeah, the 2 Bosnians, Dikmir and Narayan, I know very little about myself. Narayan was the second last player who made it in 23rd, and Dikmir was 17th, so pretty much average of the newcomers here. So yeah, we'll see how they perform. I think they've both, had not the strongest performances on the national maps. Although Pygmy are mostly struggling in Japan, and Narayan actually doing insanely well in Japan, where he got one of the best scores out of everyone in preseason. But then he really struggled in Romania and Bolivia, which brought him all the way down to 23rd. But yeah, it's another, as I pretty much say with every division, another very interesting one. And we'll see how it goes.
Very nice. Well, if Reddit League wasn't big enough, Calamity, you have added a little bit of a kind of bonus division at the very bottom. Reddit League Next. Do you want to explain a little bit about what is going on there? Only 6 players in this season for Reddit League Next.
Yeah, essentially, 59 soundbite last season after he tried to requalify for Reddit League and didn't manage to get in. He was a bit, I don't know, sad, frustrated that he now couldn't play, even though he would have really wanted to. So I thought for this season, even the players who did not manage to qualify for the regular 5 divisions should get another chance, and they should be able to, at least play something alongside the regular season and compete amongst themselves for a spot next season. So everyone who played all of the maps in preseason qualified for this little division. And it's not going to be 1v1 because, well, there's only 6 players. It's going to be, in terms of format, more like a preseason was, where players just play every week, and the one who gets the most points will be on top of the table. And it's not 100% decided yet how many of them will actually get a spot for next season, because the best players will have a guaranteed spot in Division 5 for next season. But that will depend on how many of them are actually seriously playing. Like, if there's going to be 2 of the 6 actually playing through all of the seeds, then I can't say like, hey, you get a guaranteed spot even if you only like clicked through the seeds every week and got like 7 points. But I'll decide on that, or I'd say around the halfway point of the season, maybe week 5, week 6. Like, if all 6 of them are seriously competing, or even if it's 5 of them, then I'm probably going to be giving them either 2 a free spot. And yeah, the rest of them would, well, obviously get a chance again next season to qualify through preseason. Or other than that, otherwise go into Reddit League Next again. It always depends a bit on how many signups we have for preseason. But yeah, the nice little add-on, I think, for the people who didn't quite manage to qualify, to still feel like they're part of the league and they get to play along as well.
And of course, anybody out there, you're more than welcome to play the seeds of Reddit League, even if you're not officially part of it, and see how you might do. If you do well, might encourage you to sign up for season 6, and we could see you maybe joining one of the divisions next time around. Well, thank you all for watching. It's been a long show. These shows are always going to be long given how many divisions we have to go through, but we're very happy you stuck through it with us. And best of luck to all of our returning and new competitors in this season, and we will see you all next week to talk about Poland. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.